Let's create a new project, Command N, and by default, it'll actually look like this. You have your project name. Let's name it Ventura for possibly obvious reasons. An event, remember, is just a subdivision of your larger library file. My library is called Demo Library, and this current event is called Future Events. And now we have timecode. Timecode is as it sounds, it's a representation of where the clips are in time in your timeline. And why would you want to start anywhere besides 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0? Let's say you know you're going to be adding this clip. You're working with a group and you know this clip is going to come in at the 5-minute mark because the interview has to come in at the 5-minute mark. So what we would do is zero out everything. And let's recall that from left to right, we have hours, minutes, seconds, frames. So we'd go to the minute mark, click 5. And then by default, for audio and video rendering, it's stereo, 48 kilohertz. Anything below like 44.1 is the old CD standard. And ProRes 422 is a great intermediate codec. It's super efficient on most computers, and especially the new M1 Max. And if you click right down here on more custom settings, you have the resolution, probably going to want either 1080p or 4K. Here's 3840 by 2160. That is the standard 4K UHD specifically resolution. And if you're going for that cinematic standard, you're going to want 23.98. And if you're doing sports or news broadcasts, for example, you'd want 59.94. So you have a bunch of different options for ProRes and uncompressed. You would know if you need uncompressed 10-bit 422 because that's going to be used if you're going to be, let's say, throwing the feed in a broadcast situation and it's all broadcast equipment that is expecting uncompressed 10-bit 422. But for most everything, you're not going to want that because it's not going to be efficient. It's going to be an enormous file. By default, it's 422 and smaller 422 LTT. You get a lower, same resolution, but lower bit rate, still 10-bit. I'd actually recommend this, but if you know you have to work with other people that are keeping a standard across the board, I would say keep it at 422. HQ is the highest bit rate before you get to quadruple 4. And I'd be really hesitant to use quadruple 4. If you're doing an alpha channel with a green screen, for example, and you need transparency, there's no other options. None of this supports transparency, only quadruple 4 and XQ. But it is by default in the data level and not legal or video level. So you're going to export your file and then you're going to say, well, wait a minute, the blacks are a little bit crushed and the whites are a little bit blown out. What's going on? If you don't know if your project is in video or data, Final Cut Pro is by default and you cannot explicitly change it from video level to data level. So I would keep your rendering format at a 422 flavor. Next up, audio, stereo. If you're doing surround, you're probably beyond this tutorial anyway. And sample rate, 48 kilohertz, standard across the board. And click OK.